I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I'm the host of this show, and I'm glad to have you listening in today, wherever it is that you're listening, whenever it is that you might be listening in. I'm just grateful to count you among the listeners of this episode today. I hope that it brings you some strength, some hope, or maybe just some pure entertainment as you listen in today. I want to thank my dear friend, Kimberly Yenzer. Kimberly started sponsoring this show several months ago through my Patreon platform. Patreon is a place where you can go to partner with me financially and help me grow this mission to reach as many people as possible. It frees up more time for me to write and to create podcasts, to enter races and chase down different stories of strength that I have found in so many of you that are listening, and gives me opportunities to share those stories. So, I have a dream to get this message in as many ears and many hearts and many minds as possible. And partnering with me financially through Patreon is just one of those ways that helps me achieve that, helps me get that message out there. Thank you, Kimberly, for being a longtime supporter. Thank you for sponsoring this episode today. If you're interested in learning more about Patreon, you can go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM47.com. Click on the Support Me tab and then scroll down to learn a little bit more about Patreon and some of the different things that come your way for supporting me on that platform. Thank you again, Kimberly. I'm very grateful for your continued support in helping me get this 21047.com message out there. So today's episode, I am revisiting my dear friend, Ashlynn Davis. Ashlynn's preparing to run in the Ironman 70.3 World Championships coming up this weekend in Chattanooga. The last time we talked with her, she was preparing to run the Ironman, full Ironman up at Lake Placid. And so we came out of that last podcast with Ashlynn. A lot of my friends I know and listeners have been quick with her phrase, be fierce, I think, and hope a lot of people have applied be fierce to their lives. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to check back in with Ashlynn today, get another dose of be fierce in our lives, hear what she's up to in her training, which has been really fierce, preparing for this 70.3 in Chattanooga next weekend. And she also has some big plans on the horizon that she'll talk to us about today. So I want to welcome back Ashlynn Davis to the show, and let me turn it over to my interview with Ashlynn. I want to welcome Ashlynn Davis back to the 21047.com podcast. So welcome back, Ashlynn. It's awesome to have you back with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to talk more about life and fitness and health and be fierce and you.
Yeah, well, I want to start with be fierce and just a little story here. This past weekend, I was scheduled to run the Patrick Henry Half Marathon. It's sort of a redemption thing for me. I ran it last year, and it was a really hot day, and I wasn't well trained. So long story short, I didn't finish it, and it's the only race I've ever started that I didn't finish. So that has weighed on me. So a lot of people know I've been training all year, training harder, putting a lot into finishing this Patrick Henry Half Marathon. So I was all ready. Last Thursday night, I took my son Elliot to football practice, and then on the way home, I came down with this stomach deal that just hit me all of a sudden. So here it was 2 days before the race when I was going to go get my redemption, and I suddenly have this stomach virus. So Friday morning, I got up and was still really struggling with this a little bit, but I put this out there with the running group I belong to, Meg's Miles, and then I put it on my personal page. And so I just let folks know, I'm just kind of struggling with this thing, really not sure I'm going to be able to run tomorrow. So I've said there was an interesting, unplanned, unscientific sort of experiment that went on. And what I discovered was all of my non-running friends all responded with replies that went something like this. Hey, Keith, don't worry. There's lots of races out there. There's only one you, just take care of your health. Don't worry about that, silly race. My running friends all responded, Keith, make sure you take care of yourself. But I really believe that you can still run this race tomorrow. And I had one friend, well, actually I had a couple of friends who responded that, hey, I think you can do this thing. You got to be fierce. So I was thinking this Ashlynn Davis be fierce thing has come back to be used against me. And since you and I did this podcast a couple of months ago, it's really become a popular phrase in my little circles that I know folks that listen to this. Be fierce has become a big rally cry. So I went out Saturday, and I will tell you that I thought to myself a couple of times out there, be fierce, Keith. So you got me through it a little bit there. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But I want to ask,
it brings so much joy to my heart to hear that, because it's like, that's, those words alone, if you just say them to yourself in any situation, it's going to motivate you no matter what. So you're going to dig deep and find your top, Yeah,
well, that really was what being fierce was. It was kind of digging beneath the levels of just not feeling well and not feeling good and finding something that could help me feel good enough to get through. But I knew when I was preparing to talk with you today, I was curious about that, because you are a, fitness and life coach. And I wonder what your advice is when you have people that run into an illness, or maybe they're just not feeling up to it, but they've got this workout coming up or this event coming up. What do you as a coach tell people, or how do you help them work through something like that?
I mean, this is twofold. So I've got two examples in my own personal life recently that I could definitely lean on here. So let's take back to Lake Placid, and moving up to Lake Placid, I knew that I was sick. I knew that I had some type of sinus bronchitis thing. And then before the race, I was actually treated for the sinus and bronchitis stuff. And it wasn't leaving. It was still there. I was having trouble breathing, and my workouts were, I was struggling. And so it started to scare me. So, I had a couple of people say, some of your before pictures of your race, they just looked like you were, determined, and you were ready, and you were focused, but you looked scared. And I'm like, I was crazy scared. So, being fierce is not necessarily equivalent to being not so smart about something to where you're not going to hit the starting line. I knew that I could finish that race. I just knew that it was going to be a struggle, and that I was going to perhaps, I prayed the night before, allow me to find my wings, because when you find your wings, you just know it, and you're just, you can go, 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 go. And if my wings and my limits are something else, allow me to learn what I'm supposed to learn within those limits. And being fierce and is going to allow you to, like I just told you, reach those limits no matter what they are. So, even if you're down in the dumps sick and you want to get out there, and I told an athlete, I think on Facebook a week before that, he said something to the effect of, my foot is just really in a lot of pain. And I said, listen, you've trained for this. You've gone as far as you can. I said, plantar fasciitis. I said, it usually, goes away by mile 3. I said, then you'll be fine. I said, get out there and do the best you can as long as you can. And then that's it. But if you don't at least go out there and try, for those of us who know training and all the time and dedication you put into it, you're going to have regrets. Whereas if you go out there and hit the starting line and you give as much as you can possibly give, and you're fierce about your intentions and fierce about your limits, and you've reached those limits, then you've done all you can do. You're still going to learn within those limits. So I think that's one example of, when you're facing an illness or something as an athlete. Another example is, just to, even if it's just life hits you upside the head. For example, I'm training I get done with Lake Placid, get over the illness. I'm training for worlds. And so readjusting the mind, readjusting the head to, from 140.6, very hilly to worlds very fast. And 70.3 is a whole different animal. So there's girls that just really focus on that distance. And being a 140.6, you have to really step up your game as far as your training's concerned, as far as like frequency and intensity and that type of thing. So there's that. So these workouts that my coach is putting in there, he's requiring a lot of intensity. He's requiring a lot of frequency and turnover. And, life just hit me right upside the head. As many of you know, I mentioned in the first podcast, I've been a victim of sexual abuse when I was super young, and my counselor in school, victimized me, and he decided he was going to try to rear his head in my life through Be Fierce in the business. So trying to tackle and be fierce through something like that, when it absolutely just dropped me to my knees and crushed everything that I thought that I had healed from and that I'd overcame. And you start having the feelings of fear and the feelings of anxiety and the feelings of distrust. And, it really took a good hit against my relationship with Christ and the people in my life. And it just started, really shattering me. So it was like, okay, let's reset here. So I went to the courts, filed a protection order. I got one in place. Thank God. So through that, getting up every day and trying to put on my shoes, put on my bike shoes, put on my swimsuit, and give that intensity and give that turnover and give that frequency, it was, you want to talk about a struggle. I mean, we're talking about feeling like, I just can't do it. My focus is not there. But one thing that I found that helped me get through those, because of course the workouts got done and of course the frequency was where it needed to be, but not only by leaning and trusting that God's going to give you the strength, but also to just focus on being fierce for what you have to be fierce on that day. So it's kind of like the forest for the trees. So you just focus on the trees, and the trees are going to lead you to the forest. So that's me with, when I'm in the trenches and I'm going through life and life's hitting me. I mean, you just have to focus on that next tree and just hit that tree as hard as you can, and that next tree and the next tree and the next tree. So next thing you know, you're finishing a race and you've done well. And I'm sure that's a lot of what you experienced in that 13.1.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because, folks listen to our podcast the last time, they know your fierce is, comes with, so you've been in law enforcement, you've been on a SWAT team, you're obviously very accomplished Iron woman, accomplished runner, you've overcome a lot of things in your life. So, if I'm somebody who's really just getting started in a fitness journey or just getting started with a struggle, and I'm listening to you talk about being fierce, I can see where my first thought would be, well, good Lord, you should be fierce. You've practiced being fierce for so long. No wonder you're so stinking fierce. And so, I think what I was going to ask you is, where is somebody who's just entering into, whether it's a fitness journey or entering into something challenging, and they get that first slap in the face? How do they sort of get into their fierceness? And I think you just touched on it in that figuring out what I need to be fierce in today, right? And I don't know if you'd add anything to that, but I think that was a great answer.
I think there's always something to say about the beginners and the people out there that are thinking, where did it even start? Where did she even start? I mean, I had one of my 2x4 moments, a couple of them, but the one that really stands out is, I call her my USA mom. My mom is currently stationed in Afghanistan, and there's a family I've kind of grown up with, and I said, let me train you through a 5K, Let's just do a couch to 5K with you, and I'll be gentle. And she's like, you scare me. And that, just to read those words and just her knowing me, I'm thinking, well, I absolutely don't want to come off as scary, because here's the thing. I've started low. I've started with a 100 or a walk or, I have started there. That's where there's a lot of God-given talent. There's a lot of hard work that goes into doing stuff that I do. But if you don't use either one of those, and if you don't put both of those together, it took both of those. So I had to start somewhere. And I told her, I said, I'll be gently fierce with you. But, and I meant that. I meant by, listen, I'm going to hold your hand through this, and I'm going to have empathy with you through a lot of your stuff, and just be gentle and kind of guiding them through it. But one thing that I want to add, and that I believe where it starts, is that anybody and everybody on this is kind of like the life coach meets fitness guru in me, but anybody who has experienced pain is incredibly difficult to experience, but it's something that we all should come to expect in life. That's how we're sharpened. That's how we're kind of made, and that's how we're able to help others and understand others and situations. And I think that the biggest part is that you allow yourself to experience that pain and not mask it. And then that will enable recovery. So when it comes to fitness, how that works, when it comes to nutrition, so there's a reason that somebody's overeating or undereating, and it could just mean they don't have the education or something. But for the most part, if you speak to somebody about, overeating with food, there's something that they're masking. So the back to the basics, there's reasons that they're not continuing that fitness program or making things a part of their lives. And I know in the next couple of, minutes, we'll get into the nutrition piece, and there's definitely some that can follow up with that and that conversation. But I think the main thing is just to be intentional. I said in the first podcast, you have to be intentional about what you're being fierce about. And I really mean that, because if you're intentional about really figuring out why that food is going in your mouth or why you're making those decisions. I tell my athletes and clients today, I'm like, figure out what is making you make those bad decisions. Why do you do that? Is it filling, is it a comfort thing? Is it just because you've always done that? Is it a habit? Why are you deciding not to eat? Why are you going long periods of time without eating? Is it a control thing? Why are you controlling? Find the reason that is underneath the problem that's on top, because the problem that's on top is masking what's underneath. And that's keeping that person from recovery in this lifestyle of health and perhaps fitness, if that's the way they decide to go about being healthy, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. No, I love all of that. Well, let's jump in then to nutrition. I'm glad you kind of started to go that route, because you and I talked a little bit today before we had this that I'd want to go there. And I want to go there because a couple of things. I've talked with several people lately on this podcast where nutrition came up sort of as an aside. It wasn't the main reason I talked with these people, but more and more I kept hearing nutrition is such a big part of their journey. I talked with Ray Bell last week. I don't know if you know Ray, but he's from up in that Cincinnati area, and Ray weighed close to 300 pounds of I don't know how long ago it was, several years ago, but Ray changed his diet, and now he weighs about half of that, about 150, running marathons. But when we got to talking about it, he just talked about how important figuring out his diet was. And what he figured out was that he needed to eat small meals every couple hours, and no meat. And I talked with Harvey Lewis not too long ago, and Harvey's a vegan, and he really talked about how that sort of spearheaded his physical journey. I read this book not too long ago, Rich Roll, the Finding Ultra, and he talked about how this plant-based diet completely changed his approach to fitness. And so you read all of these different sort of philosophies and connections to nutrition, to fitness. And I'm just curious, on the broad sort of looking at it, what as an athlete, an accomplished athlete, and then as a trainer, What is your nutritional philosophy? I'm not asking you to give us your, diet plan, but if you're talking about nutrition to somebody just from the broadest level in terms of getting fit, getting healthy, where does that conversation start?
So the conversation starts, and I just had this conversation with one of my athletes, and I was just explaining that when it comes to fitness, you can, and if you're on the subject of losing weight or trying to, drop pounds, or even, in my situation, I remember a conversation with my coach, and I said, listen, I have 5 pounds, and I remember another one, I have 3 pounds, and you're talking about like super hard to get down those extra 5 and 3 pounds when you're, but that's a big deal to some athletes. Other athletes, they're trying to drop hundreds of pounds and, or 50 pounds or 20 pounds. And the way I always say it is, so if you go out and you just try to exercise, but you don't change your diet, it's the same. You're eating unhealthy things, you're eating all the time, and you're justifying that behavior of working out with food. So you're not going to lose weight. You're going to put on what some people look like in the gym, as they're going to have that kind of poofy layer of fat over the muscle. So you are going to gain more muscle. Your fitness is going to increase because obviously muscle burns more fat and calories. However, you're not going to find them looking the way they want to look, or they have this misconstrued kind of perception as to how things go. Runners, they go out and they say, I'm going to train for a marathon, I'm going to lose weight. Well, then they learn and they think, oh, well, society says you need to have all these carbohydrates when you go out and run these long runs. Well, they're just putting on more pounds. And there's a high percentage that go out and try to run a marathon and train for a marathon that actually put on weight. It is a combination of fitness and nutrition. They have to go hand in hand. They have to kind of be balanced. You cannot, if you're trying to lose weight, then you're going to go for that deficit. So let's say, speaking on just a little touch on the vegetarian or vegan side, I mean, you can be vegetarian and be very unhealthy. So what I encourage my athletes to do is the 90-10. So however you want to eat, if you want to eat vegetarian, if you want to eat vegan, if you want to eat, just a normal, balanced diet, everything is 90-10. So you're eating healthy and you're pushing good nutrition through your body 90% of the time. That's fuel. That is eating for fuel. You're eating for no other reason, because if you think about it, there's really no other reason to eat. It's just for fuel. So I have family members that laugh because they're like, you don't really care what things taste like. You're just eating for, what's in it. And a lot of times that's the truth. And I know I might be a little bit different, in my mindset, but if you can just encourage people to start thinking in that way, to where they're not rewarding themselves with food, because then they're going to overeat, but it's all a balance. So you say, what did I do? What can I choose that's healthy, that will fuel that workout, that will fuel the body? And then, if you want to treat yourself 10% of the time, then you're not going to click your mind into thinking I'm depriving it of all these, cake and cookies and all these fun things that you do in life. You're actually going to succeed in making it a lifestyle, because I don't believe in deprivation or cutting out anything completely. That's just my motto. But the 90-10, working your fitness and your nutrition in.
That's fascinating on a couple of levels. So number one, the whole, I love what you say about, because I know so many people who would be shocked by the statement, but when you say, you eat for fuel, why else would you eat? That's sort of, again, counterintuitive for a lot of folks. And you made me think, I worked with this couple many, many years ago, back when I worked in residential treatment, and they were this wonderful friends, but they were the most opposite couple I think that I had ever met. And one of their opposites was, she was a vegetarian, an extremely healthy eater, and ordered all of her food from, I don't even know where she ordered it from. It had to come from special places. And then he and I were very similar. But here's an example. We go out to a Chinese buffet, and he and I would be pigging out at the buffet, and she would be like bringing in most of her own food with us just so she could be there. And she always said the big difference between Don and I is I eat to live and he lives to eat. And I think that sort of touches on what you just said. She really would. She used to say, if they would just make a pill that would give me all my nutrition, then I wouldn't have to waste time eating. And that was so foreign to me. I was like, why would you even wish something like that and miss all the enjoyment of eating? And then the other thing you made me think of was, and that's why Rich Rule's book, Finding Ultra, had such a huge impact on me. And it was the book was good, but this one section, he was talking about his own sort of nutrition journey. And he had this epiphany. He was walking up the steps one night. He's 40 years old, going to go tell his girls goodnight. And then he couldn't make it up the stairs. And he decided, I really need to do something different. So then he went vegetarian. Well, he figured out 6 months into that, shoot, I'm vegetarian. I'm eating as unhealthy as I ever had because chips are vegetarian. I'm eating all this junk food. And anyhow, that's when he altered it and went almost entirely plant-based. But then the piece that hit me when he talked about going plant-based was, because he wasn't really on a strong fitness journey at that point. He just was trying to tackle this nutrition thing. Well, he said once he went plant-based and really started focusing on putting all this healthy food in him, he had so much energy, he had to get out and do something. And that's when he got into Ironmans and really running some crazy races. So when I read that, that really struck me in terms of that really is the way I want to think about nutrition. I want to eat in a way that gives me so much energy that I feel like I got to get out and do something with it. And that really fits in line what you just said with eating as fuel. I think that's sort of the same way which he described happened to him. I think that's the way you're describing being intentional about it.
And, and two, just to touch on, you wanted me to speak broad. If you're going to ask me to speak to thousands of people from all different levels of fitness and exercise and all different levels of life and ways of life, I would say, if you can just make your mind say, what is it going to take to fuel what I need to do today? It may take more some days and it may take less others, depending on what you're doing and depending on what you're training for. But to me, it's like when you start taking, the vegans or vegetarians, and it takes that extra preparation, that extra thought. I'm here to tell you, I'm speaking from someone who's getting their PhD, trying to run a business. I've got, 2 other part-time jobs. My kids are in therapy 3 or 4 days a week. I mean, you want to talk about trying to figure out nutrition and with all my training. I'm telling you, the people in a broad, grand, from that type of perspective, they need to hear, listen, it's not about trying to go funky with your diet. It's all about whatever position you're in that day. If you are just thinking, what do I need to fuel for what I've done today? Like it's back to the trees in the forest, and once you start, going tree to tree to tree and making those little decisions, you're going to reach the forest of weight loss or your competition and your weight loss. I mean, to me, it's just that simple if you just break it down day to day.
No, and I love that. That might be last time I took Be Fierce out of our conversation today. I might take just that whole question. What do I need fuel wise to get me through what I'm going to do today? I love that sort of way of looking at it. And I've said that too, that because I have been mostly vegetarian and I go, and 90-10 really describes what I've been doing in terms of vegetarianism. I'd say 90% of the time I am, but I just can't. I've got to cheat here and there. It's just, I can't do it. But the thing I've said about that is I really don't miss the other foods. The hard part is it's just too much harder for me to prepare and eat this way. It just takes, and it doesn't fit in a lot of days with my work life and my schedule. So I think, and it's all about making it. This whole fitness and health and nutrition. If you ask me what's the 100% blanket way of my mindset when I am dealing with an athlete or a client, I say to them, it's all about what we have to do to make things a new lifestyle, to make them a lifestyle to where you're not like, oh, we're going to have, beans and rice and chicken for the next 45 days or the next 6 months. And then after that, you're on your own. This is, hey, what can I do to make you
live longer and have a lifestyle to where it's generational. You can, pass this stuff on and move it to the next generation. This is a lifestyle. This is how I am. People that, know me, and that, when I worked at CSX as a supervisory special agent and I would travel, that was part of my job. They would say, oh, we'll wait until Ashlynn's done with her workout, or we'll go here because they have healthy choices it was a part of my lifestyle. It was who I am. And, once people really take it in that and change their mindset of my goal is to change my lifestyle, then it completely becomes, to me, it becomes easier.
No. And that, like I said, that was a key shift, and you've just strongly reinforced it. That the whole idea, when I, again, read this idea of I was eating in a way that just made me feel so much more energetic, gave me so much more energy to get out there and run. And that fits in with the whole fuel piece. So I'm glad you put it that way. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be glad to hear it that way.
And it keeps people from failure too, because, it keeps people from regressing to their old ways. So if you make it a lifestyle, then it's going to, it's going to not only affect you and your children and their children, but it's also going to keep them from falling back on the way that they were, if that makes any sense.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so we've been talking about training, and I know you've got a big event coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. So tell us a little bit about what's on your horizon.
Well, after today's 4-hour trainer ride, I am officially starting my taper. So real thankful for that. My legs are definitely thankful for that. But I have World's 70.3 coming up in Chattanooga. So I was explaining to you the ride portion, which is my strong suit, is pretty much a 30-mile climb for the first 30 out of the 56 miles. So definitely a challenge. The run is not exactly flat either. The whole day is just going to really push me to every single limit. So I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, it's going to take being fierce for me to a whole new level, just because, like I said, you're really, people say, oh, the people that do 140.6s, they're like, oh, my B race is a 70.3, which what I realized in Florida last year for my 70.3 was you're racing against many, many athletes, top athletes, who the 70.3s are their A races. So, it's definitely a challenge for the longer distance triathlete to go back and to run and to race the 70.3. It's all different mindset. It's all different speed. It's all different. You cannot allow yourself any extra time or breaks or anything if you're competing, like at the level that I hope to be. So
what has your training regimen looked like then for the last several weeks as you've ramped up getting ready for this? What does a typical day or a typical week look like for you in terms of, and I'm fascinated by the whole triathlete piece, because and granted, I'm very, very amateur, but even in running, some days it's like, boy, how do I squeeze all of that in to prepare for even a half marathon? So then looking at somebody like you that has swimming, has biking, has running, how do you train for something like that? And what does your training look like for the last several weeks?
Well, that's even kind of a poke the bear kind of question, because this is experimental, this training that I'm doing right now, because I have many, many fast twitch muscle fibers, which is basically coming from, I was a sprinter in high school, and, I did run cross country in college, and I did run cross country in high school, but, I was able to take those fast twitch and get them into slow twitch and do the distances, but hence why I can do the longer distance triathlon. But the key to training the fast twitch muscle fibers, because what happens is they get tighter quicker and they need more recovery. So the training that I've tried and have just implemented since Lake Placid is recovery in between shorter sets. So instead of doing, like, you go to the pool and you do 2,900 yards or 3,600 yards, you are breaking those 3,600 yards up into 40 and 50 rounds of 25s with rest. So this is it sounds kind of daunting, but it's going to be experimental. But that rest, that little bit of rest that my fast twitch muscle fibers can actually get, is what is necessary for me to go and hit those times and really get that frequency and that speed. So this is definitely going to be an interesting 70.3, because it's actually kind of putting to the test some of the training and stuff that I've been implementing. But as far as hours is concerned, so a longer houred, like training for a full Ironman is going to be around, 15, 16, 17 hours a week. Your longer training is probably between, I don't know, some of them are 5 to 7, 8 hours. These are probably between, 3 and 4, sometimes 5 hours on the weekends. But really during the week, you're doing, 1, 2, 3-hour workouts. Another thing that I added in was the leg lift. See, squats, front squats, back squats, and deadlifts. So, because in order to make these hills and these climbs, you really have to work your hamstrings and your quads. So that is something that I've put a little bit of size on my legs, but it's definitely something that I think that I've noticed that I can still keep my runs under 720, 730 miles, and I can still keep my bikes up to 23, 24 mile an hour spin. So I think that, if I could just dominate the swim and keep my form and my technique down, that I actually have a pretty good chance of turning out a good 70.3.
So I have a question then on the training. I'm fascinated by that, because that seems like a radical shift to go from longer reps to these short bursts and recovery. You talked about that in terms of your swim training. Did you incorporate that same principle into the bike and the running, or was that just for swimming?
Same thing for the bike, same thing for the run. So instead of doing like, well, for instance, I did 15 miles the other day, I think. He wanted me to do them negative splits. So you start at, I think I started at like 7 miles per hour on a mile, and I ended at 8.4 on the speed. So you're going to negative split those. You're going to go faster each mile, but in between you get in between 1 minute to 3 minutes of rest. So you can, but they're not walking rest, they're running rest. So you're going to put it down to maybe, I don't know, I'd probably put it down lower than he would like, which I probably put it down to speed 5 on the treadmill. But, I'm going to gain that recovery. I'm going to gain that breath, and then I'm going to hit the next mile hard. And then you do that for, 16 rounds of negative split, miles.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That sounds brutal. And then, so the other question I have is, in these trainings is, do you break up, like, is one day running day, another day bike day, another day swim day, or do you do all of these typically in the same day?
You will probably have 3 or 4 days of 2 sports. So there are some days that you just do one, and then, like I said, 3 to 4 days, depending on your week, that you'll do 2.
And your strongest, I know we talked about this last time, but your strongest segment
is the bike.
Bike. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did after Lake Placid, I did Ohio 70.3 relay, and I did the bike portion with a couple of girls, and my average speed was up in the 24, high 24s. I think I almost hit 25. I was going for 25, but anyway, just a really, really powerful ride, and gave me a lot of confidence coming back off of Lake Placid. So I don't know that I will hit 25s in Chattanooga with 30 miles of them being climb, but I'm hoping to, definitely throw down and be as fierce as I can.
We're going to be rooting for you. We are going to be rooting for you. How many are entered? Do you know?
I have no idea. I think I read something of along the line. Oh no, you know what? That was an all-world athlete status, but there was like over 183,000 people that, you know, you were competing against in triathlon for all-world status. But I don't know for the for worlds. I have no idea. So actually, you know what? I leave a lot of that up to my coach. He'll give me a breakdown before my race and say, this is what's going on. This is how many, and yeah, so that comes this week.
Pretty good. When you headed down there?
I'm actually going to leave Thursday night after I teach. So.
And then the race is Saturday or Sunday?
Girls race on Saturday and guys race on Sunday. So this year they split it.
All right. Well,
but an absolutely amazing venue also. And I'm sporting a new bike. So I just recently got sponsored by 2 companies. One is Quintana Roo, which is a site, you know, bike. They gave me a bike, and then through Cyclical Nature Bike Shop, which is kind of like my new bike shop that I go to here in Columbus. But the other sponsorship is Dynavello, which is a power meter. So those power meters are basically, you plug them in and charge them like with a USB, but it linked right up to my watch within seconds. It was pretty awesome. So I'm going to be sporting those 2 things and, you know, hopefully make them proud.
Oh, you're going to make us
Lord
all
willing.
proud. Well, we're going to be proud of you, because I know you're going to go be fierce no matter what. So that's
100%, no matter what.
That's all we're looking for. And so then, do you have, I don't want to get you beyond the worlds, but down the road, any big plans?
So I was kind of having reservations about mentioning my next race, but I think I'm going to go ahead and come out with it. So I have decided to try for Kona in Louisville this year in October.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
That'll be very, very quick turnaround.
Well, that's the other thing about training, is that's why I'm just now starting my taper, because it's kind of, you know, like a little bit of a through race. And I don't want to discount the race at all by any means, but you have to, you know, as I spoke with my coach, you have to you go into it as with the mindset of it being a through race, so that you can just hit the ground running, you know, like that's why I'm doing 4-hour rides today, is, you know, it's a through race, you know?
Right. And so then in Louisville, to make Kona, you would have to run a certain time, or would you have to finish in a certain position?
I'm going to have to finish top 2. So I was 3 last year. I always call it my hometown race, just because this will be my third time racing it. But I just absolutely love the course. It just speaks to my body. I love it. They put it in October to where it's just so super cool. So somebody with asthma, you know, like me, it just really, you don't have to combat a lot of the heat, you know, and so it's just, it just gets me all amped up. And I just absolutely love that venue, love that race. Such a quaint little town. The people are just amazing. But, you know, I get there and I feel like you don't have the anxiety of dealing with now where's what's where, you know exactly where to go, what to do. So I'm looking forward. It was a debate as to whether I should do it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm trained. I'm ready. You know, I'm healthy. Let's do this. So
I'm amped up for you now. I mean, now I'm fired up.
Maybe that was to get me excited about it.
Yeah, I'm ready to start clapping, singing. I'm fired up for you. This is going to be good stuff. When is that then? When is that?
So I told my secret. It is October 17th.
Very cool. No, I'm excited about that. So you got a big couple of months coming up. And then we'll follow you to Hawaii.
You know what? Then I'll be in Hawaii next October if I make it.
You're going to make it.
When I make it.
You are going to make it.
But you know what? It's in God's hands. So,
it is.
You just never know.
It is.
You just never know. So.
Well, let me tell you, I appreciate you coming back on. You are fascinating to talk to, inspirational. You just tons of good stuff today. So thank you. And I'll be sharing the links to certainly Chattanooga next weekend, and then Louisville, now that we all know you're going to be there. And you got quite a fan club out here. We are going to be following your journey. But always, Ashlynn, like I said, when Tracy Outlaw introduced me to you virtually, the thing that stuck out to me then is the same thing that sticks out to me about you now. It is just your unwavering faith no matter what goes on. I'm glad that it spills over into your fierce fitness journey and your fierce life journey, but your faith journey just makes me want to be better, and it's always a joy to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And, like I said, I just couldn't be happier, even more thankful for friends like you and just people who support my journey and support the journey of just health and fitness and, allowing Christ to be the foundation. I think that that's something that my business went outward with also. And I that's always a struggle, because you're like, we just want to embrace everybody, but you know what, we still do embrace everybody. We still do accept everybody. And, it's just, I'm not going to waver on my foundation and what's been such a big part of what brought me to success in, continued battles and continued, fighting of success for life and for what I've gone through. So I just really appreciate you putting us out there and giving me the opportunity.
Well, this won't be the last time. I promise you that. Good luck to you next weekend, and we'll be following you.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. Take care.
Have a great night. See ya.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Well, thank you, Ashlynn Davis, for making a return visit to the 21047.com podcast. Always special to have your fierceness come back and revisit us. And hopefully we can return a little bit of that fierceness in our cheers for you this weekend in Chattanooga at that 70.3 World Championships. And then start getting a little fired up about that return to Louisville, hopefully securing a spot for Kona. We'd all love to go to Hawaii with you next October. Good luck to you this weekend, and thank you for sharing your life journey, your faith journey, your fierce fitness journey with us. It's always inspiring. I always take something away from it, and I think today I'll be taking away from it that this whole idea of eating to fuel. I often eat way more than my body needs in a given day. Rarely do I think about what is it that my body needs today when I'm eating. So thank you for your nutrition message and just all the great message that came out of that today, Ashlynn. So good luck to you this weekend. I'll be posting some links with this episode where we can track along with Ashlynn next weekend, and then also to her Be Fierce page. I encourage everybody to go check that out. So thank all of you for tuning in today and listening to Ashlynn and me and our interview. I hope you'll come back next time, working on some really special stuff with the podcast in the next couple of weeks, actually. I just signed up for the Hokie Half Marathon, September 16th, I believe, a couple of weekends away, and working on a project right now that I will use that race to help support the folks that are enduring just incredible hardship in Houston right now and all of that section of Texas. So I'm going to try to run and support them. Still trying to figure out exactly how I will do that, but I know I'll be coming back to ask your help to do that in a big way. And, when I talk about fighting the good fight, finishing the race, and keeping the faith, I just have a funny feeling that that's something that's really, really challenging for a lot of folks in Texas right now. But that's what this podcast is all about, running to dark with the light that I have found in my own running journey. And, it's not all about running. It's all about strength. It's all about this hope and this belief that, the race will end and that we can all chip in and help folks who just can't see that finish line right now. If I can use this platform and the Hokie Half Marathon to, even in a small way, help those folks that are struggling from Hurricane Harvey to see some light at the end of that tunnel, to help them keep the faith that life will somehow return to some sense of normalcy, then that's what I want to do. So I'll be talking about that, maybe maybe in the next episode, and certainly through my social media pages, you can keep informed on what's happening in that regard. I've also got an interview set next weekend for Teresa Pitts. Some of you may know Teresa's story. I've shared it a little bit. Teresa set the world record for a full marathon pushing a stroller with 3 young kids in it. It just blows my mind. And so she did that at the Missoula Marathon earlier this summer, and I've been really excited since then to get her on the show. So we're going to do an interview with her this week and get that podcast out pretty soon. So looking forward to that. If you want to learn more about this mission, go to TWOTIM47.com, TWOTIM47.com. Like I said, you can learn more there about how you can support me. You can catch up on my latest blog post there and just learn a little bit more about what's happening with 2tim47.com. Thank you all so much for taking time to listen in today. I hope you have some incredible runs this week if you're running and training. If not, get out there and cheer somebody. And if you have no interest whatsoever in running, I'm just thankful that you, for whatever reason, stopped by here today, and I invite you back. Thank you all, and have a great day.